Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode, the live 49ers Mailbag, where we answer your live questions, as well as any questions that were previously submitted through any of the means that get to me, whether it is hitting me up on Twitter. I don't care if you leave them in the comments on YouTube. You can also hit me at 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. I see folks arriving in early, checking in. John Garcia, let's go Niners. Hello, John. How are you doing? Get Lotion with the shout out for Steph Curry making history tonight. Man, I may put my Trailblazers up here in Portland above the Golden State Warriors, but I still do have a warm spot in my heart for the Golden State Warriors, and certainly in recognizing Steph Curry for that amazing accomplishment. No doubt about it. Ellis 10 in the building. What's up, Rob? Niner faithful for life. All right. This is how the mailbag works every week. I see Javier creeping in there. Hello, Javier. This is how the mailbag works every week. I get into the previously submitted questions that have the more thought out answers. And you all who are here in the chat, put in any questions you might have. Help me out by putting the @RobSchuh in the question when you have a question directed to me, so that I know it's not just chat back and forth between folks in the chat. Looks like we got Chris, fellow sneakerhead, rolling in here. Let's go Niners. Calling out Javier as a fellow sneakerhead as well. We got 3 sneakerhead questions coming in first. The sneakerheads are a part of the Schuh community. Just in case you didn't know, you can join up with the channel. Goes beyond subscribing. Francisco coming in. What's up, Bang Bang Niner Gang? Welcome, welcome. Malk the Believer. Make the Believer. Hello, Rob and Faithful. Good to see everybody in here. Karthik making the appearance. What's up, Rob? Today is Tuesday. It's a special Tuesday mailbag, and here's why. Tomorrow we have a jam-packed day of live streams. The way it's going to work, I found myself a great Atlanta Falcons resource. Going to have an Atlanta Falcons podcaster on tomorrow at 2:30. You're not going to want to miss that. And then at 5 p.m., going to be going live with Randon McMahon. Always a fan of Randon when he comes on the channel. He's a good friend to the podcast. Good evening, everyone. Yes, Karthik calling out. Typically, the mailbags are on Wednesday. We switched it up, and we may keep it that way going forward. But we will decide that later. Karthik, appreciate it. Always like your questions coming in. All right, I'm going into the previously submitted questions that we have here. This first couple come in from Sneakerhead submissions, members of the Rob Schuh channel of the community. Again, I always truncate the question a little bit, and so I'll let you know what the full question was. But glass half full for the offensive line, coming from Texas Niner, fellow sneakerhead. Really, this came in as Daniel Brunskill was an undrafted free agent in 2017 from San Diego State University. The dude starts for the San Francisco Niners. I'm sorry, I think the kid is Rudy in my book. Rob, I think you should give a little segment of time to give the O-line a glass half full situation. Rudy and Compton did the work needed in the trenches for us to get the ball down for a touchdown in overtime. Niners O-line did great. That was the question in its entirety. So I decided to go back and do a little refresher for myself and provide a little refresh for all of you, just in case you weren't all caught up on Daniel Brunskill and what he brings to the table. Brunskill was signed as an undrafted free agent, as mentioned by Texas Niner, out of San Diego State University, a small school. He was signed as an undrafted free agent coming out of the draft by the Falcons in 2017. Funny that we're talking about him now in Falcons week. He was then waived and re-signed to their practice squad, where he spent 2017. January 2019, he joins the San Diego Fleet of the Alliance of American Football. If you remember that league, it was only around for a short while and then folded because in April 2019, 4 months later, he signs with the 49ers. And honestly, that first year really excelled as our swing tackle and began filling in along the line. That's where you started to see him as a guard, but primarily, initially, he was playing swing tackle. I honestly believe that's his more natural position, and I know I'm not alone in believing that. He has since signed 2 one-year deals that have kept him with the team in 2020 and 2021. 2021 being an exclusive rights free agent, where the 49ers extended an offer, and really he had no choice but to accept that to stay. It hasn't been all pretty for Daniel Brunskill. We look back at the matchup against Seattle, which was a particularly ugly one. I know, I was there in person. That was painful. He had a 65.4 overall PFF grade, 53.1 pass blocking, allowing 2 pressures. Sunday versus the Bengals, Brunskill allowed 5 pressures and a sack. The right side of the line is the weaker of the two, both Brunskill and Compton, and I don't think it helps to have the two of them next to each other. Typically, strength next to strength amplifies itself on the offensive line. The same is true when you have weakness next to weakness, that it amplifies the areas in which those guys struggle. Compton was beaten twice, including a sack and a quarterback hit. So between the two of them, they allowed 2 sacks from the Bengals on Sunday. They're both athletic enough to make plays on the perimeter. That's the striking thing to me. They really do assist in the run game. They are plus in the run game, but throwing the ball when the right side of your offensive line struggles with any twists or anything that a competent pass rusher might bring to the table really does make it tough to get away with passing in those situations. So obviously, that seems to be a liability in pass protection. Daniel Brunskill, Tom Compton, not getting rave reviews from any of the beat writers out there, any of the people who watch film, anything I'm seeing on tape. But you do have to give them both credit for being able to run block. It's just when it's on obvious passing downs, it just does not help to have those 2 weak links on the same side of the line right next to one another. But then in the run game, the 49ers have been able to use that to their advantage. Kyle Shanahan has schemed runs to the right-hand side. And let's look at that play for Deebo Samuel, the touchdown around the right end. You saw it on the TV angle. It was following Tom Compton to the promised land. And that was enough against Cincy, right? So I'm going to say that the glass is absolutely half full along the offensive line. But as much as I want to give credit to Rudy, as he is so affectionately called by Texas Niner, Daniel Brunskill, it really isn't the right side of the line that's keeping the glass half full for me. If I'm evaluating just the right side of the line, the glass is only half full when it comes to the run game. Really, it's not great when it comes to pass protection. Neither one are great against bull rushes. But when you look at the entirety of the offensive line, you cannot ignore the dominance of Trent Williams and the show of amazing brute force he is putting on display. Next to him, Tomlinson, Mr. Consistent, always out there, always in his position, rarely beat. Not a super dominant performer, but rarely beat badly, just consistent. And Mac may not be what players or fans were hoping he would be as far as a Pro Bowl center, but a huge upgrade from the turnstile that we had at the position in 2020 and quite honestly, 2019 as well. All right, I'm interested to see what you guys all feel about the offensive line and my thoughts there, looking into the comments just to see if anybody, look at that, people trying to get the likes up on the video. I always appreciate that. Magnify my signal and amplify that, get it out there. Disappointing out. Yeah, Aaron Banks. So Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks, that should have added to what I thought was going to be a strong offensive line that appeared to be a strength for this team after the loss of Mike McGlinchey and the failure of the coaching staff or failure of the front office in drafting or developing Aaron Banks. And whatever the failure was that did not get him ready to contribute this year, that forced Daniel Brunskill to continue playing out of position. You would have looked at a situation potentially if Aaron Banks had came in and claimed that right guard spot, it might be Brunskill who would be filling in at right tackle right now. That could be a far better position for him. I'd love to see Aaron Banks continue to push along that offensive line and really raise the game and allow for Brunskill to go outside on that right tackle spot. That might solve two problems for the 49ers. That might be the lift that we need heading into the playoffs. All right, now we have gone through our first question there. I definitely want to get to any that pop up in the live chat so that we don't get too far behind. I'm going to stick to the ones that start with @Rob or @RobSchuh, so I know they are questions directed at me. Here we go. V Breezy coming in here @Rob. Cornerbacks, do you have in mind for the off season? I have yet to really delve into who's going to be available in free agency. You can look right now and see who's scheduled to be a free agent, but quite honestly, teams haven't locked up their own people yet, right? I mean, you look at the 49ers and it'll look like DJ Jones is going to be a free agent, but that ought to be the first free agent priority for the San Francisco 49ers. I hope DJ Jones never makes it to free agency. I hope he doesn't get to test the waters. I hope we re-sign him prior to that. There will be some names out there. I look for the 49ers to address cornerback in free agency and in the draft. I think they'll go heavier in one and lighter in the other. So if they spend big free agency dollars on a cornerback, on a veteran cornerback, then I would put them more in the 4th, 5th round pick used on another cornerback. If they just get a middling cornerback in free agency where they're spending in that $4 to $6 million per year average salary, then I would look to them to spend a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Remember, the 49ers do not have a 1st round pick in 2022. They also need a bookend defensive end to help Nick Bosa get off on pass rushing. So I view one of those two being solved with an expensive free agent and the other being the 2nd round pick. That's my guess, that it's either cornerback or defensive end for that 2nd round pick, and it will be dependent on what they have filled in free agency, and then we'll get to the draft, and that'll determine that. All right, Make the Believer @RobSchuh, what's your thoughts on Big Tom Compton filling in for McGlinchey? Think he's been doing great. So this goes back to what I was just touching on, and maybe I already answered that for you. In pass protection, not good. In pass protection, Tom Compton struggles. So when the 49ers get into obvious passing downs where the opposing defenses can pin their ears back and really get after the 49ers, that's when it is disaster time. Tom Compton, not great against the bull rush. Tom Compton may have single-handedly been responsible for the safety that occurred against Seattle. The defender was back in Jimmy G's face faster than you can imagine. But you saw it on the run with Debo against the Bengals. Tom Compton was 30 yards out in front of that play. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Sal, @Rob, what's your reaction to the salary cap announcement for next year? Joy. Absolute joy. For those that don't know, the NFL and the NFLPA, Players Association, got together and set a maximum amount for the cap, what it might hit next year in 2022. They have just confirmed that it will, in fact, be set at that high water mark, that it will be $208 million for next year. The 49ers will still be cash strapped. It is going to be tight, even after ditching Jimmy Garoppolo's salary. That's something that basically has to happen for the 49ers to be able to sign the number of free agents they will need. They only have 32 players under contract for next season and are very close to, if not estimated to be over the cap at this point. They need to clear that 26, 27 million that they get back in getting rid of Jimmy's salary in order to just sign enough players to fill out a 53-man roster. It is going to be tight. The 49ers are going to need to make sacrifices. Free agency spending will be backloaded on contracts, much like the 49ers have been doing on their big contracts most recently. It will be, I mean, as a guy who enjoys getting into the cap, this is going to be a fun and challenging offseason for the 49ers. All right, here we go. What's the word on Atlanta's defensive line? I am going to wait and get into that tomorrow, 2:30, my channel, bringing on an Atlanta Falcons podcaster who is renowned, going to answer our questions in regard to how we match up against Atlanta. RE Investor at Rob Schuh. Atlanta always gives us trouble, and at Levi's. I expect this game will be tougher than we think. However, I still expect us to pull out the victory. Atlanta is locking in talent. I'm expecting that was lacking, not locking. They are lacking in talent. Sorry about that, RE Investor. 28-20 is the prediction. I love that prediction. Atlanta's defense is suspect. Very, very wide open for the 49ers to take advantage of. However, don't sleep on them. They are talking about trying to run the table on this season and thereby crawl into the playoffs. That's all the excitement that is all over any of the articles you read about the Atlanta Falcons. And what greatly impacts their percentage chance at making the playoffs, what more than doubles or even triples their chance of making the playoffs, is this game Sunday. There is no more important game for the Atlanta Falcons. If the 49ers start slow or take it easy on Atlanta, I have no doubt that they will attempt to jump all over us on Sunday, and we cannot allow that to happen. We must take this game seriously. It is absolutely essential that the 49ers not drop any games. At Rob Schuh, our O-line has been a disappointment this season for a certainty, but they are playing well enough in the run game to help themselves do better play action, pass blocking, which is the recipe. Yes, RE Investor, the interesting thing here is the resurgence of Jimmy Garoppolo has coincided with the percentage of snaps he's taking in shotgun. And the play action happens under center, right? Under center, turn your back to the defense. There are times where I feel like that is just not Jimmy's strength, where turning the back to the defense gets him nervous about that linebacker that he's not tracking. And we see him throw one of his errant passes. And so when he has had this success, the shift to shotgun passing has been very prevalent. I'll be interested to see if that statistic does not continue along that line. All right, RE Investor, again, before we get to some other folks, we are just not a drop back passing team. Doesn't hold up. Hey, I agree. I was having a Twitter exchange. Ashley, hello, how are you doing? Ashley had a question as well. Didn't bring it into the mailbag, but next time we will, Ashley, for sure. Jan, yes. Jan, Jan, correct me, whichever one it is. Trap game, it sets up that way. It absolutely does. The 49ers cannot take it easy on this freaking game. It is so important to maintaining the momentum that they have at this point. Ashley coming in with a question. Hey, which team would be harder to beat in your opinion? Patriots, Packers, or Bucks? I know there's no guarantee we play these teams, but curious what teams you think would be hardest to face. Well, I'll go in opposite order of teams I would prefer to face, right? First and foremost, the Packers. I do think that having that mental edge over Green Bay counts for something. The little brother, big brother syndrome in the NFL is very real. Look at the 49ers over the Rams. Look at the Seahawks over the 49ers. I do think there's a little something special that Kyle Shanahan has over Matt LaFleur going into Green Bay. The next would be the Patriots. Obviously, that matchup would only happen in the Super Bowl, so I will take that as wanting to be in the Super Bowl, even if we ended up dropping it, and believing that we could match up better against the Patriots offense and still be able to potentially run the ball, even though Bill Belichick would make it exceedingly difficult. The worst matchup in my mind is the Tampa Bay Bucks. It is because of that defensive line that they have. They are able to bring significant pressure up the middle, attacking that spot that we just talked about earlier in the first question with Daniel Brunskill. Bull rush against Daniel Brunskill brings pressure immediately back into Jimmy Garoppolo's face, and that pressure does not bode well for 0 turnovers. And as we know, the key to the 49ers turning this thing around has been avoiding the turnovers. Archie coming in. Who will be the first priority for contracts? You think? I think DJ Jones. That's who I think should be the biggest priority for contracts going forward. And then I think it's locking up guys a year before they actually get to a point where you need to. I think you lock up Nick Bosa this year. I think you try to lock down Azeez before he has another good season and becomes more expensive. Those would be my top 3 in that order. DJ Jones, Nick Bosa, Azeez Al-Shaair. Ellis 10. When healthy, the 49ers are top 5, maybe top 3 contenders, in my humble opinion. With the current injuries, where do you put the 49ers? And can they overcome these weekly, foolish mistakes? You know, the NFC is wide open. And for that matter, so is the entirety of the NFL. I think it's safe to say that the 49ers are a top 10 talent as they sit right now. They are that team nobody's going to want to see in the playoffs. They will be that deadly matchup that plays you in your house. They travel on the road and they bring their defense and their run game with them. Those things travel in the playoffs. So yes, I believe it is about the 49ers not shooting themselves in the foot. The games that we lose are the ones where we do something to hurt ourselves. It is so frustrating to watch. Make the believer. I'm making you a gentleman's bet that Jimmy G will still be here next season. Watch. All right, gentleman's bet, it is on, because I am not a believer in that. I like Jimmy. I predicted he would start 16 out of 17 games at the beginning of this season. It's looking like that may end up being the correct projection, depending on what happens these last 4. But I just can't see it from a fiscal standpoint. I just don't know that the 49ers can afford to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, and they would really need to rearrange some contracts. They would have to do something with his contract as well. So that would be a tough one, but I'm taking the gentleman's bet. We shall see. Joseph Manna, sneakerhead, coming in here. Who will have more yards, Pitts or Kittle? Kittle, all day, Kittle. Yes. Oh, Texas Niner, we got your question in there. That's okay. Watch the Warriors. Enjoy that. And you can watch the video afterwards. No problem with that at all. All right, one more coming in. It's either way for Jan, or I'm going Jan then. Either way on the name. Which Jimmy will we see this game? I'm a little bit nervous about this, that the 49ers will try to go too pass heavy, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. So Jan, hold on a second. I will get back to it. Dizza coming in at Azeez. Lock him up. Throw away the key. Couldn't agree more. We need to start getting a couple of these contracts done before players get expensive, a la George Kittle, a la Fred Warner. Some of these you got to lock up the year before they have their breakout so that you have players on reasonable contracts as they begin to emerge. Jason coming in at Rob. Restructure and extend Jimmy as a solid backup next year. He won't fetch more than a 5th, and he knows the offense. Best backup we'll have had in our lifetime. Well, maybe not my lifetime, because I remember Steve Young as a backup. And I probably just added words into your question there. I just don't see that happening. I don't think that Jimmy will want to accept a role as a backup. I do believe there are teams out there who will trade a 2nd or 3rd round pick for him. You can hold me to that. That is my prediction, that it is either a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo next year. I think that team will do a sign and trade to where they have agreed in terms to a new negotiated contract that makes his 2022 cap hit significantly more palatable for whatever team is taking him on. And they can extend him for a 2 or 3 year deal at somewhere around 17, 18 million a year, as opposed to that 27. Maybe it'll be 20, 22, but it will be a little bit cheaper in 2022. What I meant was 20 or 22 million may be the figure that they take on. But I think it's more than a 5th, and I just don't know that he agrees to be a backup at this point in his career. I think he wants to go play for somebody who wants him, an organization that actually wants to have him there and wants to work with him. Wanda's correct. He could take a pay cut if he so chose. I'm just not sure that that's what is going to want. And I think part of it is this, that 49ers fans feel this way. Timothy comes in. I'm sorry. I'm tired of Jimmy. You don't have to apologize. He does have a frustrating style of play. And I think a lot of 49er fans have that emotional reaction to Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that's part of the reason why he may want a fresh start, somewhere where there isn't any baggage going on. Wanda agrees this is a QB desperate league. 100%, Wanda. I believe that is the case, and that's why I'm saying somebody is going to reach out for him. Moses coming in. What's up, Rob? How you doing, Moses? Good to see you, our resident defensive back expert. Karthik, who's the best player on the defense right now, Rob? Nick Bosa. Nick frickin' Bosa. The guy is a monster. I mean, an absolute monster. It is unreal. All right, one more, then we're getting back to a previously submitted question. Ellis 10, Rob Schuh, what is Joey Bosa's current contract? Is it a good time to extend too soon? LOL. No. Joey Bosa just signed somewhere in the neighborhood of like 19 mil a year, I want to say. I think Nick Bosa's contract is going to come in the 20 to Wait, am I thinking of a different contract? It will be 20 plus. It may even be 25 million for Nick Bosa. I think that Joey is above 20 million average per year. He just signed one within the last year. So yes, his little brother will absolutely top that. It's going to be expensive, but it is time to do it. All right, getting back into a previously submitted question. Here is the truncated version. Is Shanahan saving up surprises for the playoffs? Perhaps including Trey Lance. This comes in from Andre, a sneakerhead, part of the Schuh community of the channel. The actual question was, hi, Rob. Do you think we'll see an appearance from Trey Lance should we make the playoffs? I'm thinking Shanahan may have a few surprises in store. Looks like it has been ramping up lately, i.e. using Debo as a running back, as well as getting Ayuk, Kittle, and Jennings the ball. These are all positive signs. So let me answer this, Andre. This is my hope. I am with you on this. By that point, by the time we get into the playoffs, as a coaching staff, you better have coached up Trey Lance to be comfortable at a bare minimum with some substitution packages, some quick packages where he comes in, goal line packages, second, third and short in between the 40s where he can complete play action, shot down the field. You have to be able to take advantage of his big arm and those legs. You have to be able to add that to your offense if you want teams to be scared of you in the playoffs. He's been a backup quarterback all season to this point. I would hope that he's ready to contribute at a higher level than what we saw against Arizona in that game plan. But even that, if you added in what he did against Arizona, that could be an added element that defenses won't have tape on in the playoffs. Again, I do think that that's critical. Defenses have more time to prepare for you in the playoffs. Coaching staffs put together more game-specific plans for their defenses. And the 49ers, if they do not continue to get George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk involved, become a little bit one-dimensional in trying to force the ball to Deebo Samuel. If a defense only needs to take away Deebo, we become more vulnerable. If Elijah Mitchell is cooking, if Deebo is still going, but we've got Kittle involved, now we've got Brandon Ayuk with 5 or 6 catches a game, and then you're going to bring in Trey Lance for 4 to 6 snaps every game, and the defense doesn't know what to do? Come on, you can't tell me that that's not a ferocious offense that defenses will not want to face in the playoffs. All right, one more previously submitted before we get back over into the comments. Will the 49ers look to take advantage of a suspect Atlanta defense on the ground or through the air? Here was the entire question. Again, this is from Sean9519ers, another sneakerhead, part of the Schuh channel. Hey, Rob, we should be able to score 40 on the Atlanta defense. You see this game in the hands of the running game or Jimmy G? Quick turnaround to Tennessee, which is a Thursday night game, so maybe pass more and not beat up the running back and the O-line in this game. Thoughts? I really love the logic here. The logic of of not getting Elijah Mitchell dinged up going into a very critical matchup against Tennessee. However, I get very, very nervous when the Niners think that they can beat a team without really relying on their own strengths and their core identity. The 49ers' core identity is as a run-first football team. From there, they play complementary football. They try to minimize mistakes, turnovers, play solid defense, attempt to get quick 3-and-outs, manage the clock, time of possession, really hold on to the ball. These 15, 16, 17 play drives that just break the spirit of the opposing team. I got worried in Cincinnati when we saw basically a 2-to-1 ratio of passes to rushing attempts. That game began to slip away from us because of the fact that we didn't get back to and establish the run in the second half. In the first half, we were much more balanced against Cincinnati, and that's where we got out to our lead. As we allowed them to climb back into it, it was because we got away from it. We tried to attack the weakness of Cincinnati, which was the middle of the field, and the way in which you attack that is through the passing game. But we got away from the run. And we committed some shorter drives. We gave the ball back to Cincinnati multiple times. We weren't able to move it down the field. We weren't able to possess it for long stretches of time. The defense started to get gassed. Thankfully, they were able to come back and make a killer stop at the end of regulation and a killer stop in overtime. But honestly, I felt if we had stuck to the run throughout the second half, we may have avoided the need for the defense to come in and save us the way they did. Avoided the need for Jimmy to go 6 for 6 in overtime with that dagger to Brandon Ayuk and that amazing play along the sideline, individual effort by Air Ayuk. We could have avoided all that if we had stuck to the game plan. So yes, the pass-heavy game plans make me nervous. I don't think that we can overlook Atlanta. I think that would be a mistake. I think they are on a mission to close out this season with 4 straight victories, and we need to get in their way, and in order to do that, it's going to need to be a physical one. If we were to drop one of these 2 games, if we were to drop either the game against Atlanta or the one against Tennessee, dropping the game against Tennessee would do less damage to the 49ers in their attempt to hold on to and control their playoff seeding hopes. All right, getting back into the live comments here. Again, use the @RobSchuh moniker, makes it easier for me. Jamie Bryant with the @RobSchuh. Will D Ford be here next year? And will Jimmy not be here? He costs too much. We let him go. It creates more capital. I answered the Jimmy question already in my gentleman's wager that now exists. No, I do not believe Jimmy Garoppolo will be here next year. I believe a team will trade us a second or a third round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo, and he will start somewhere else. I believe he will sign an extended contract with them, a 3 or 4 year deal that amortizes the money out a little further. He'll still have the same amount of guaranteed money, but it will be fewer dollars per year on average. D Ford, I cannot imagine. So it looks like, tomorrow's the deadline. If he's not activated by tomorrow, he's done for the year. Shanahan indicated as much this week that he does not expect D Ford to be activated. So it is very likely, as of tomorrow, D Ford's 2021 season is done. His money, his dead money, his cap hit is fixed at this point. It doesn't matter what the 49ers do. Doesn't matter if they trade D Ford. Doesn't matter if they cut D Ford. Doesn't matter if they play D Ford. They have the same amount of dead money allocated against their books. They moved his money around several times, signed several different things to get the money pushed to 2022. They can no longer move it anywhere. It's just a matter of whether you allow him to eat up a roster spot. So if he gets healthy, I guess as I'm talking myself into the idea that we could see D Ford on the roster, because the 49ers only have 32 players under contract for next year, and D Ford's money is all dead. So essentially, if he is in any way healthy, he's a free body, because if you cut him, you still have the same amount of dead money as if he's on the roster. So you could see the 49ers filling one of their 53-man spots with D Ford if they think they can get any snaps from him. but I would suggest against it for the 49ers. They need to move on from often injured players. There is a stigma with the team. There is a stigma for the fan base. There is a feeling of a curse within the fan base. You got to end that stuff. You can't have free agents thinking that, well, if I go to San Francisco, I might fall victim to this injury bug that goes through there. No. Just cut it off. You let go of Jalen Hurd this year. That was tough to do. He may go on to be successful with someone else, and best wishes for him if he does. The same thing has got to be true for Dee Ford. I got a question about Jason Verrett later. That's a very, very similar concern. You have to move on. Jason coming in. What's up, Rob, my fellow Oregonian? Well, hello, Jason. Where are you hailing from? Remind me where you are in Oregon. All right, Jan coming back in. I think Azeez is the best on the D right now, playing lights out with a smaller contract. I can't fault you for thinking Azeez is lights out. He has been playing lights out, and he is, I think, our best linebacker so far this season, although Fred Warner could rebound at any moment. He's just missing those big splash plays. Archie, at Rob Schuh, Shanahan don't like playing rookies, but surprise would be nice with Trey. Yes, it would. He is a bit old school in that regard, isn't he? That he really likes players to earn their playing time. And he really feels that rookies need to do a lot to unseat whatever veteran is hanging on to that role. That one is going to be tough for Trey Lance to break in there. It's going to be tough for Aaron Banks to break in there. You saw what it took to get Ambry Thomas out there. You saw what it took to never really get Trey Sermon out there before the injury. He does prefer to go with the veterans. It probably has to do with the complexity of his offense. At Rob Schuh, if Trey was going to play, he would have already been out there. We will not see Trey till next season. Now, Jamie, let me clarify. I'm not talking about starting Trey all of a sudden. What I'm talking about is working him into the game plan. And no, I don't believe that the ship has sailed on that. I believe it could begin to happen at any time. As soon as Shanahan believes, to Steve Young's point, as soon as Coach Shanahan believes he can insert Trey and gain an advantage over the opposing defense, I think that he will. It is all about winning games for Coach Shanahan. Matt Schuh coming in, fellow sneakerhead of the channel. If Ford is still not ready, the Niners could activate him at the expense of a roster spot. Worth the risk or just cut your loss? This goes back to what we were just talking about, Matt, that I do think if he appears to be healthy, it could be worth the risk next year. I don't think he's going to get activated tomorrow. I think his 2021 season is done. You just let him rest up, and then it depends on how deep your roster is. If you've got a scrub, if you've got another version of I hate to say it after calling him a scrub, if you've got a very bad player that could be the 53rd man on the roster, or you could keep Dee Ford and hope he gets a few snaps, maybe you keep Dee Ford. But if it's a young player that could show some promise, I'm going the young player. You got to move on from this injury bug. Archie, Niners need to get back on the ground game. Amen to that. They need to run over the Falcons, spread those carries out. Spread those carries out so it's not all on Elijah Mitchell, not running him into the ground. But the priority is winning every week. Joseph Mana gets it. Every game is a must-win at this point. Keep it on the ground. Keep to your identity. Jamie saying we should run the ball. That's what works for us. Throw some screens into it, though. Yes, absolutely have to take your shots. Jimmy Garoppolo is clutch on third downs. He is great over the middle. That quick release allows him to hold the ball just a split second longer, and you don't want him throwing 30 to 35 times a game. I think we can all agree on that. Ellis 10. I'm getting the vibe that Jimmy G won't be traded for more than a third or fourth rounder. What if the 49ers offered $4 to $5 million to Jimmy G's salary to attempt a second or third round pick? Possible? Yes, you can up the amount you might get from another team, the offer you might get from another team, if you're willing to eat some of Jimmy's salary. I don't think the 49ers will be willing to do that for the previously mentioned tightness that they will have around the cap next year. Archie, Sorry, Rob. We did have Niner insider punt returner at the Bengals team, LOL, and we got lucky with the sissy penalties, and Jimmy almost gets picked on a crucial drive. I don't know what you're apologizing for. Those things are true. We did need the punt return turnovers in order to get ahead in the first half. You can only play the game in the way in which it unfolds. You know, we don't make excuses for the other team when the Niners cough up a bunch of turnovers. You got to be able to capitalize on other teams' mistakes and be mistake-free yourselves. And the 49ers took that one. They absolutely took that one. And Jimmy was clutch in overtime. I'm not going to take that away from him. Could we have lost the game with the potential pick six? Yes. But if you go back and try to rewrite history of things that could have happened, we could have won that game significantly earlier in the contest. Luke Luna coming in the house. Another sneakerhead at Rob Schuh. You said it yourself. Teams have more time to game plan when they get to the playoffs. And when they are stopping the run like Seattle did, and the Bengals look like they did, well, you have to throw or you walk off the field. You need some games like we had against the Bengals. You do need Jimmy to be confident. You do need him ready to make those throws. I thought it was our Achilles heel in 2019 was Shanahan taking the ball out of Jimmy's hands too much, taking away his confidence. And then when we needed it in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, it was too late. You couldn't give it back to him. You had already robbed him of his confidence. Joseph Mana coming in at Rob Schuh. Speaking of injured players and moving on, do Verrett and Mostert come back next year? I'm going to hit the Verrett question in a little bit, and I am going to use that as motivation to jump back over into the previously submitted questions. Again, if you want your comments read in the comment section, your questions, please put in the @Rob or @Rob Schuh. Makes it a hell of a lot easier for me to find. All right, this next one is going to be, is Trey getting better on the bench? Lewis came in via Gmail with this one, 49ers mailbag at gmail.com. Here was the entire question/statement. If you haven't noticed, all rookie quarterbacks have an advantage over Trey. They have actually been playing and gaining experience. Sitting on the bench, holding a clipboard helps no one. You have to get out there and play the game. So the only reason I am going to contradict this is going to be based on Steve Young's comments and how that relates to what I know of Trey Lance by reading his backstory that some of our 49ers fantastic beat writers, I can't recall if it was the Matt Mayoko backstory of Trey Lance or if it was Matt Barrows. Those are my two favorite 49ers beat writers. I read everything that they write. I hope you all do too. They are fantastic. And one of them did a backdrop on Trey Lance. So let me get into it and remind you what Steve Young said in his interview with Matt Mayoko on the podcast. Steve Young talked about what it takes to get better while on the bench. He said, you should play your first year. That was his first instinct. He said, I wish I had played. I thought I wasted time being on the bench. I thought that I could have gained more from being out there on the field. So Steve makes no bones about it. He believes you learn more from playing. But then Matt Mayoko clarifies. He says, so are you telling me, Steve, that you can learn nothing while sitting on the bench? And Steve said, no. By no means am I implying that. However, it takes a certain mindset in order to be successful, in order to learn while sitting on the bench. It takes a relentlessness. It takes a level of preparation second to none, preparing every week, every day, every game day, as if you are going to play in every single respect. Mentally, in the meeting rooms, what you do physically, how you prepare for game day, the same way that you would attack those meetings, attack those days as if you were the starter. And so it takes a certain type of individual to be able to do that. Think back to Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins was all about the mental reps. People laughed about the idea that he would go out onto the field and literally practice as if he was playing by himself. Make believe, pretending that he was making the reads, pretending he was making the throws. That's mental preparation. That is next level mental preparation. what I know of Trey Lance, what I know of his history, what I know of the stories I read of him growing up, is he has what it takes to get better while on the bench. He has the character to be that guy. He was the dude that when a college told him, no, we don't want you to be quarterback, we want to shift you to safety, he said, no, I'll go sit on the bench somewhere and prepare there because I know I'm a quarterback. He has that inner drive. He grew up in a household. His father was an ex-NFL player, not an NFL star by any means, but made it to the league, knew what it took, the commitment level it took to be an NFL player. And when he introduced Trey to football, he explained what it took. And he said to Trey, if you want to actually play at an elite level, you're going to have to train like that. And if you want to train like that, I will train with you. He agreed to train with his young son. I mean, we are talking young, preteen. And he said, you're going to need to work out on a daily basis. And here's the deal. If you come wake me up, it was at an ungodly hour. I don't want to say what it was. Maybe it was 5 a.m. It was something where I'm not happy about getting up at that time. He told his son, if you come wake me up, I'm out of bed no matter what. I will never say no, but I will not come wake you up. I will not come get you. You need to find the drive. You need to find the motivation. You need to come get me, and then I'll participate in this with you. And Trey Lance never missed a morning. He came and woke his father up and got ready for those workouts all of the time. That is the drive that is needed to have the type of progression that Steve Young is talking about. So yes, I have faith that Trey is getting better on the bench. Speaking of Trey on the bench, this question comes in from Don C via Twitter. Why do people hate on Jimmy Garoppolo as much as they do? Great question, Don C. This was the full question. I truncated it as usual. Listen to these stats. Jimmy G has a top 10 quarterback rating. Top 10 for least amount of interceptions of a quarterback with at least 10 games started. Top 15 in completion percentage. Top 3 in yards per attempt. Top 16 in both touchdowns and yards, having at least 50 to 200 less attempts than everyone ahead of him. Why do people hate on Jimmy so much? Thank you for the question, Don. This is sure to incite some people in the comments. I'm sure that you are jumping on one side or the other with regard to Jimmy Garoppolo right now. This one is simple for me. This is emotion-based. This is totally emotion-based. Those people that hate on Jimmy with the level of hate you see on 49ers Twitter, with what you see in the comment section of the YouTube channel for the 49ers, it is unreal level. Jimmy's trash. Jimmy's awful. Nobody's going to trade for Jimmy. You couldn't get a 7th rounder for Jimmy. I get the frustration around Jimmy Garoppolo. I understand the criticisms. I will critique Jimmy Garoppolo as well. He is an inconsistent quarterback. And he is one of, and I don't think it's disputable, he is one of the 20 best quarterbacks in the National Football League. If you want to dispute that, give me some facts. Don't just do Jimmy is and a little trash icon. Give me some facts that say why Jimmy is not a top 20 quarterback in this league. Top 20 quarterback, those are the world's best athletes. The 32 starters in the NFL are a tiny, minuscule fraction of all the people who have ever played quarterback in the world. And Jimmy's one of the 20 best of those. So if you want to talk about Jimmy being frustrating, being maddening to watch, being inconsistent, being too much of a game manager while still committing too many turnovers, we can get into that discussion. I think that's a valid argument. I think that's a really relevant discussion to have around James Garoppolo. But if you want to say he's garbage, that's just emotion. That's you. That's not facts. That's not logic. I would like to see you present a logical argument saying Jimmy is trash, that he doesn't belong in the NFL, in the league in its entirety, in the National Football League. Because I guarantee you, if the 49ers decided he was garbage and cut him, he'd be starting for somebody else. So does that argument really hold water? No. Again, I get the frustration. I'm frustrated with him. I get wanting more. I want more. I get wanting Trey Lance. I would like to see Trey Lance as soon as he is ready. I have to take Kyle Shanahan at his word on that because he sees him in practice in areas that we don't. So we're speculating a hell of a lot more than he is. We can speculate that he doesn't like rookies, that, whatever conspiracy theory you want to go with. But to me, work through it logically. Be far less reactionary. Be more about the inconsistencies of Jimmy's game. The frustration of watching him make similar mistakes time and time again. That's a valid argument. Those arguments have merit, and it's fair to argue whether the 49ers can and should upgrade at the position. And I think obviously the most obvious answer is yes, and they felt that they should as well. But again, to argue that Trey is a guaranteed upgrade doesn't seem to be logically based to me. That is hope. You hope that Trey is an immediate upgrade over Jimmy or a guaranteed upgrade. To say that the chance of Trey being an upgrade outweighs the risk, now we're talking about solid logic. If you want to say, I believe Trey Lance is an upgrade and the risk of starting him over Jimmy Garoppolo is a reasonable risk for these reasons, boom, we can get into a logical discussion, but otherwise it's just emotion. The hate on Jimmy G is just emotion. And I don't mean to call it out for folks. All right, here we go. Something from Ellis. The Niners hold a second, third, fourth, fifth, and seventh round pick for 2022. We know Kyle and John play with draft positions. Do you see them pulling a first round or another second rounder? I don't think they will do what it takes to move up to get into the first round because that second rounder will be toward the end of the round. So to move up, they would need to give up substantial assets, maybe something from the following draft. So no, I think we are not going to see a first round pick for the San Francisco 49ers, barring some unforeseen trade of a blue chip player, which I hope doesn't happen. I don't want to see another Buckner trade ever in my lifetime. Could they move up in the second round or gain an additional second round pick? I could see that. I think more likely that they move up in any one of these rounds to target one of their players. But given the lack of picks, I would suggest that the 49ers more likely trade back and attempt to recoup some draft picks because they absolutely need more players on the cheap. Joseph coming in. Can we afford Azeez, Fred, and Dre? Yes, because Dre is still on that rookie deal. Can we afford to extend all three? Probably not. You got to make your decision there, and that's one that I'm glad I'm not making the call on just yet. I would need to absolutely get after some film study to decide between those. We haven't seen enough from Big Play Dre to really make a call. Going right now, the hot hand would be Azeez and Fred, right? Pop Belly's doing me a service, like 100 watching, yet only 28 likes. Come on, folks. Help this man out. I love that. I'm putting it in. That's not a plea. I mean, it is a plea from me to you, kind of. It's me acknowledging that the likes mean something to the channel. Jason at Rob, who should the Niners rather face in the first round? I think we'd do better against the Rams or Dallas. Rams, Dallas, Cardinals. Those are the three that I am not scared of. I don't care that we lost to Arizona twice. I watched them again last night. They are who I think they are. They are a team that just is going to trail off a little bit, is not going to have everything they had early in the year when they get into the playoffs. Cliff Kingsbury, man, in case anyone else heard this, I recorded it on my phone. I need to tweet it out. In my surround sound system in my man cave, I sit near one of the rear speakers. And in the NFL, it picks up some of the fans in the stadium. And there was this dude at the end of the game, when it got down to 3 minutes, in my rear left speaker, going off at Cliff Kingsbury, just cursing him out, talking about how he shouldn't be throwing near the line of scrimmage with only 2 minutes left, down 2 scores. Just cursing the man out. It was phenomenal. I had to record it because I could catch the guy's voice crystal clear in that one little speaker at the rear of the system. But I think that fans are right in that regard, that Cliff Kingsbury has not proven when it's clutch time he is going to deliver. And therefore, I put him right in there with the other inconsistent teams. The one that you really want to avoid is a lot of travel and tougher defensive line. So to me, that's Tampa Bay. Outside of that, I'm not really scared of anybody. And I'm not scared of Tampa Bay. I just think that's probably the worst matchup. Ellis 10, in mention of Jimmy G's salary, I thought if the 49ers traded away Jimmy, they would open up 26 to 27 million. If they offer 4 to 5 million to trade Jimmy G, wouldn't that free up 21 to 22 million? Yes. But what I'm saying, Ellis, is that they can't afford to give up that 4 or 5 million, even if they free up the other 21, 22. They only have 32 players signed for next season. They need every available cap dollar. I don't think they would value a higher draft pick over 4 to 5 million in additional cap space. JC, fellow sneakerhead, I think our newest sneakerhead on the channel. JC, didn't get a chance to recognize that the other night, or maybe I did, but I don't know if you were here, so wanted to make sure I did it. JC and the sneakerhead crew. Why is it so hard for us to score in the second half? We're going to have to score more going into the playoffs. Absolutely. I thought against the Bengals, I thought it was we got away from the run. I thought Jeff Wilson Jr. was showing some things in the first half, just a little bit closer to the Jeff Wilson Jr. of years past as he recovers from that knee injury, but we shall see. Luke Luna, don't know if you stated this, but the cap goes up 27 million, exactly Jimmy's salary, and we could take cut that. Being said, Trey better get ready. Make things interesting. Conspiracies. Okay, so, I mean, just to summarize, the 49ers are right up against the cap, even at that $208 million figure for the cap. So the Niners are in the thick of cap madness. They will need every cap dollar available. I think the only reasonable thing for them, unless they renegotiated Jimmy's salary, would be to cut him or trade him. All right, Archie, at Rob Schuh, Niners need to move on and start working on Trey Lance. They're not going to do it while they are in the playoff hunt. No way. Jan, Jimmy clutch in the 2-minute drill. They should stay in the 2-minute drill all the game. Isn't that strange? Isn't that just odd how much better he is when he's not overthinking it? I think it indicates that he is too frequently being yelled at by Kyle Shanahan as an OCD perfectionist. That Kyle gets in Jimmy's head in that way. You got to let the man ball. You got to let him ball. Jamie at Rob Schuh. No, they could put him out there on the field. He could bring him back in trick plays, throw bombs down the field when we need him. Hail Mary pass. They can't do it on the bench. That's what I'm saying. I want him in there the 4 to 6 snaps. But yes, you can improve on the bench, just not as much as being on the field. Wanda remembers it was 5 a.m. workouts with his dad. I'm telling you, Trey Lance is the truth. He is getting better while on the bench. He is taking advantage of the time in the league. The game will be slowing down for him, even if he's not out there on the field. He will. Looking for some comments to bring in here. Riddy likes the Cowboys matchup. Think we could roll over the Cowboys. Here you go. Mike G, Tampa Bay versus Green Bay. Real battle of the Bay. Now, that would be a good matchup. Would love to see those teams knock one another off. JC, you are the newest sneakerhead, my friend. Yes, you are. Welcome to the crew. We're doing a sneakerhead video call-in show on Thursday. The timeline is being voted on right now in the community. If you are a sneakerhead, go to the community tab of my YouTube page and vote on the time slot. Right now, the leaders were 4 and 6 p.m. I think that the 6 p.m. slot was leading right now, Pacific Standard Time we're talking about. And that will be a call-in show for sneakerheads that you get to call in on video and we get to chat. I'm going to do a regular call-in show for everybody, but that'll be voice only because we can't have anything happen to the channel. For those of you that have followed some of the other YouTube channels, you know maybe what happened to Last Second Sports in that regard. Sean951, just with a compliment, just saying, Rob, you the man. Sean, you're the man. Thank you for coming in. All right, back into some previously submitted. Again, if you put your comments in the chat and they are questions, mailbag questions, hit the @RobSchuh or @Rob so that I know they are directed at me. Here's this one that I said we'd get to later, and here we are. Will Jason Verrett return next season? If so, does he sign a one-year deal? From Optimistic from Twitter. Love that play on words as I go by the left shoe on Twitter. You know I love a good play on words, pun, whatever they are. So will Verrett return next season? My instant reaction is I highly doubt it. Let's look at it from both perspectives. So if you're Jason Verrett, I think you probably want a fresh start at this point. You have been a couple of spots and you have been plagued by injury in a couple of spots. If you are going to make it back one more time, maybe you want to be surrounded by positive vibes. Maybe you don't want to be around the 49er faithful who, let's just be honest with ourselves, we are going through our own PTSD when it comes to injuries. And I see it on Twitter. I see people saying it to players, and it drives me crazy. I want to challenge all the 49er faithful watching this to be better in that regard. Understand that these players don't choose to get injured and that it hurts them to be injured. This is what they do for a living. This is how they provide for their families. This is the thing they enjoy the most in life. And to think that they're suffering through an injury and then get beaten down by their own fans, that's unacceptable in my book. If you do it and you feel like I'm talking to you right now, good, I am. Because that's unacceptable. I don't care if it's a player on another team. I don't celebrate injury. I don't get in a player's face about injury. That is, I can't put it any other way. Unacceptable in my book. But you could see why he might want a fresh start, where a fan base isn't concerned with his injury history, where he comes in as a bargain basement signing. Now, from the opposite perspective, from the 49ers perspective, you got to move on from this Moneyball strategy. If you had been a little wiser and it had worked out, much like Trent Baalke and the ACL strategy that he had, if it had worked with a couple of players, great. But it hasn't, and you've got to make sure that you create a new atmosphere. You cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. That is insanity. Insanity. All right, so both of those perspectives aside, all that said, if the 49ers do address their cornerback needs elsewhere first, so let's say they find someone in free agency, they sign them to an $8 or $9 million a year deal, $8 to $10 million a year for a quality, average starting level cornerback, or they plan on addressing it with a higher draft pick, and Jason Verrett doesn't get signed elsewhere, he remains in free agency, he becomes of value. At that point, if you have added a starter you're counting on, opposite of Emmanuel Moseley, if you have Emmanuel Moseley and another non-injured starter, and you can add Jason Verrett as a depth piece, as a value signing, much like he was in 2019, now that didn't pan out. But if what you did in 2019 produced 2020 Jason Verrett, that would have been amazing. And you have a chance to do that in 2022. So if you can do it on a value signing, and as long as you are not counting on him to be your starter, yes, I'm on board with that. And the same logic would apply to Raheem Mostert, who was asked about with the same question earlier on Jason Verrett. Same thing. If you've got Elijah Mitchell penciled in as the starter, and Mostert goes out into free agency and there just aren't the dollars out there for him that he thinks he deserves, and now he's back on a less expensive one-year deal, yes, I would be behind the 49ers bringing him in. No question. No question that speed adds something to the offense that you are missing without Raheem Mostert. All right, one more question before I get back to the chat here. This one's a quick one. This was obviously a little tongue-in-cheek, but Aether Art coming in on Twitter. Should the Niners trade all picks in rounds 2 through 4 for about 12 fifth-round draft picks because of the 49ers excelling in the fifth-round draft picks? So I went back and looked at this to see if that's actually the case. It's not as great as I would have thought, given how much we talk about the fifth round because of 2017 and George Kittle. So the start of the Shanahan era, 2017, we had 2 fifth-rounders. One turned into George Kittle. And yes, that's reason enough to celebrate the 5th round picks. No question. But the other one was Trent Taylor. Trent Taylor is obviously no longer with the team. He was with the Bengals for a little bit, no longer with them either. So 1 out of 2. 2018, DJ Reed. Now, you can argue the 49ers made the mistake by trying to waive him injured last offseason. That cost us. Seattle signed him, and he would be a nice depth piece for the 49ers right now. But I don't know that you can say that it was a huge win with DJ Reed, but certainly a good 5th round draft pick. A good 5th round draft pick. 2019, big play Dre. Yet another seeming home run. 2020, Colton McKivitz. That one doesn't seem to be working out all that well. 2021 shows promise. Jalen Moore, Diamador Lenore, and Talanoa Hufanga. So there is some magic to the 5th round, but not enough for me to get on board with trading any 2nd, 3rd, or 4th rounders for 5th round picks. But had to go in and explore it, because sometimes you got to think outside the box. And that's exactly what Aether Art was doing there. All right, coming back into the live comments here. Jude Luff. Hey, Rob, been a fan since 2018, and I have a question. Do you do perks? I don't know what perks are, but put another question in the chat, and I will get back to it and try to answer that. Glass City coming in here with the big super chat. Glass City, thank you for that. Rob, if Niners end up not being able to get a first back, will you take a defensive back with your highest pick or develop Ambry Demo? Your show is great. Thank you for that. I mean, amazing generosity there. Appreciate the question. I think that the 49ers will not get a first round draft pick back. I anticipate that they will only have a 2nd rounder as their biggest draft pick. And to me, it has to be one of two things. Has to be a defensive back or has to be an edge rusher opposite Bosa. Either one, you can find some pretty good value in that 2nd round. If you're looking for a speed guy in the mold of D Ford, you might be able to get it. I think you're probably better off investing in a defensive back there, but it's really got to be prefaced on what you're able to fill in free agency. And those are two positions that, quite honestly, don't often make it to free agency. You don't get very many high quality defensive ends that make it to free agency. You don't get very many high quality, inexpensive cornerbacks that make it to free agency. So you have to have your eye on filling one of those in free agency and then look to fill the other in the draft. So to me, it becomes a matter of which one are you able to address in free agency, and then the other becomes that top priority for your 2nd round draft pick. And I could even see moving up in the 2nd round to get the guy you really think you want. All right. Thank you for the donation, Glass City. Shout out to Glass City. Boom. Bang Bang Niner Gang asked us what happened with the Last Second Sports. Just to say why I won't do a video show with everybody calling in. It was this thing where someone showed something they shouldn't have. YouTube shut down the entire channel. The dude had 3,000 plus subscribers at the time, and there were no questions asked. They just shut down the channel. He had to rebuild. He has done so since then, but honestly, I don't want that to happen to me. I hope people understand. Sneakerheads, we're going to have a video call in that everybody can watch, but then for everyone else, it'll be limited to voice so that the worst you can do is throw a curse word out there. Spy Nick Danger trying to get the likes up. I always appreciate people doing that in the chats. We got a new sneakerhead. Ellis10 is the newest member, a sneakerhead of the YouTube channel. Appreciate that. You will be a part of that call-in show, and we got all the other benefits spelled out on the channel as well. I still do need to make an introductory video breaking that down, but it is all explained when you go to join the channel. Chad coming in at Rob, does a 9-8 Niners team get in, or does it have to be 10-7? 10-7 is the cleanest way to get in. 9-8, you're looking at some tiebreakers. But Matt Mayoko laid out a very specific scenario predicting the wins and the losses where the Niners could get in at 8-9. So yes, 9-8 is absolutely a way in which the Niners can get in. I'd be a hell of a lot more comfortable if they can get to that 10-7 mark. Why not just win out? Why not just get to that 11-6 mark? That'd be the way to go. Red Wing 644. Rob, who were the running backs we lost in the first week? We lost Raheem Mostert in the first week. Raheem Mostert. And with him, we threw out probably 25% of our playbook because nobody else was able to turn the corner as fast until we found Elijah Mitchell. And even Elijah does not have Raheem Mostert's speed, let's be honest. Juan coming in at Rob. 49ers will win the Super Bowl. What's your thoughts on that? Frickin' cheers, Juan. Cheers to that. That's what I think. I love that. I will be there if it happens. Book it. I don't care how much that damn ticket costs. I've wasted my money on this franchise for many years. I will gladly do it again. Ellis10, buying the sneakerhead stock. LOL. I love it. I absolutely love it. Looking for questions for me, again, using the @Rob or @RobSchuh. Jason, @Rob, are you going to watch Spider-Man tomorrow? George Kittle's got me fired up over it. I'm usually slow to watch some of these. I used to like the movies like Spider-Man, all the Marvel stuff. I love in theater. I like the big screen. There's just something different about an action film on the big screen with their surround sound cranked up to frickin' 11. I've got a decent system at home. I've got a nice TV. I've got good surround sound. I crank it up, but it's not the same. You don't have the good oily buttered popcorn and the milk duds and some random candy and eating until you feel ill. There's just something about being in the movie theater. So yes, I will. In answer, I will watch it. I probably won't prioritize watching it tomorrow. I got a busy show schedule tomorrow, doing the 2:30 show with the Atlanta Falcons podcaster. Got a 5 o'clock show with Rand and McMahon, both of them on this channel. It will be busy for sure. So I probably won't fit in Spider-Man tomorrow, but I will work it in. Jan, @RobSchuh. He's tired of getting injured and only getting older. Jason may be back up somewhere else. I think we're talking about Jason Verrett there. Yes, I think he may end up going somewhere else as well. I think he probably wants a fresh start. I think the 49ers probably want a fresh start. So we shall see how that breaks down. Looking to see any remaining comments here. I know there's a super chat I got to get to. A couple of them before I get to that. No, super chat first. Super chat's got to get the priority. I hope people respect that. I still get to the @RobShoes, even if you're not contributing in the super chat. I still want to answer the questions. Gammon Brown coming in. 1, injuries make Verrett a value signing. 2, no free agency money after re-signing Bosa, 30 mil, and Debo, 20 mil per year. 3, O-line needs investment. Lakin and Mike, free agents. That is great points. Yes, Verrett would be a value signing, and I think if he doesn't get snatched up by another team, if he doesn't prefer to go to another team, I love him as a depth piece. You are absolutely right that the free agency dollars are few and far between for the 49ers going into it. They will be less after the re-signing of Bosa and Debo, but the Debo, Bosa, Azeez, any re-signings the 49ers do will be heavily backloaded. Do not sleep on the fact that the 49ers signed the NFL signed a record-setting TV deal. That and the money that's coming in from these gambling sites, which was $300 million this year alone and goes up exponentially going forward, the cap is set to explode in 2023. The 49ers and other teams who are set up to need to sign a lot of free agents this coming offseason are going to take advantage of that. If you wait until 2023 to sign these players, the cap will explode. They will expect a bigger percentage of that, or the same percentage, a bigger chunk of that. And you're going to see a lot of bad contracts. Think of the NBA signings in 2016 when the cap exploded for them. So what I would say is that no, I'm not worried about that the cap dollars because I think they're going to backload the hell out of the Bosa and Debo ones for that one. Totally agree though that O-line is going to need investment. You have to hope that some of these younger guys can improve and step up. I would like to re-sign DJ Jones. You know me, big time DJ Jones fan, and Laken Tomlinson. I'm also a big time Laken Tomlinson fan. Is this the end of McGlinchey? Is he an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year? I would have to ask for sure. I see clarification on the perks question. That seems like an odd one to me, but the answer then is clearly no. No, I do not offer perks in that way. Javier coming in. Rob, still listening, but playing with my boy. Great show. Appreciate that. Have fun with your son. Rick West at Rob. The team now calls him B.A. Great nickname. Will it stick? B.A. Baracus. I love it. Hey, as a kid who grew up watching the A-Team, people may know what I am talking about there. Looking through to see any remaining comments. We have definitely gone through some good stuff. Good topics today. I'm hitting my last topic and then coming back into the comments and closing it out. So let me get over to my topic and close this thing out here. This one comes in from Gavin across the pond, my good friend from Wales, the notorious GAV on Twitter. He says, after finishing 17th in 2020, is Bosa on pace to climb the NFL's top 100 players list this year? Yes, he is. But how much room is there to climb? He was number 17. So I went through and looked at the 16 players ahead of him. And this gets interesting for me. I really enjoyed this one, Gavin. Thank you for asking this question. I think it works out really nicely to get into this. The quarterbacks who made it above, Lamar Jackson. You know, I would guess he'll remain in a similar range. Russell Wilson, I would think he's dropping. Patrick Mahomes, he'll probably stay where he is. Drew Brees, off the list. Tom Brady, I'm guessing he will climb. Aaron Rodgers, probably about where he was. Running backs, Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry were both above. You know, this is 2020 and Bosa made the list, so injuries don't necessarily take you off. So you would think that Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry would still have a chance, but the others, Kittle on there, number 7, Aaron Donald, Michael Thomas, Stephon Gilmore, Chandler Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Bobby Wagner. You could see a couple of those players falling, and you definitely see Nick Bosa climbing. So judging by those names ahead of him, I'd be willing to wager, Gavin, we'll have to make this a gentleman's wager. I'd be willing to bet Nick Bosa finishes inside the top 12. An outside shot at the top 10. I think he deserves it. I think he's a top 10. But also make room for Trent Williams in the top 10. Maybe even a top 5. Trent Williams should be top 3 after this season. I mean, it is unfair what that guy is doing. The 49ers, in my mind, tell me if I'm crazy, should have 4 players in the top 10, faithful. Trent Williams should be top 3. Bosa should be somewhere in the 5, 6, 7 range. Kittle, 7, 8. Deebo Samuel deserves to be on there as well. I don't know what order they deserve to be on there, but all 4 deserve to be on there. What Deebo is doing this year, so special. Kittle had been a monster in the run game. Now he's had amazing passing games to complement it. Bosa lighting it up, unstoppable along that defensive line. And Trent frickin' Williams, just forget about it. The Niners are an elite team and should have 4 players in that top 10. I just said we are elite. We are inconsistent, but elite when healthy and can be elite to finish this thing out. Looking back to see if anybody's got a comment, question in the chat before we close this out. Got that super chat, Mr. Brown? Got that super chat? Hopefully you saw it. If not, just got to rewind a little bit. Yes. All right, I'm getting through all of the chat and not seeing too many questions. Here we go. Sean has one, 951. At Rob, the Falcons are a bad team, worse than Seattle. Their 6 wins are trash teams, all under 500. We need a statement win like Carolina 2019, 51-13. No more last possession wins in regular season. Niners for life. I love it. That is a true statement. We do need a very robust win to continue this momentum we have built up right now. Would love to see that prediction, Sean. Jan coming in. Lack of depths and running the gauntlet of the playoffs worry me if they even make it to the bowl. Hey, I can't blame you. I think it is a stretch to believe the Niners can make it to and win in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl, I should say. Not a stretch to make the playoffs, not a stretch to make noise in the playoffs, but a stretch to make it significantly far given being the road team. But I think there's a chance. Sean coming back in. Peter King said Shanny told him that Jimmy G is one of the best football guys he has ever been around, and it's very hard to get him off the season. Very telling. Thoughts? I'm telling you that Jimmy G, there is a trust issue. Steve Young spoke to it. There's a trust issue between Shanahan and Jimmy. But you have to respect a lot of Jimmy's game, and you have to give him credit as well. And back to the earlier topic, it's just irrational in my mind that it's that the hatred level is so high for Jimmy. It's emotional and not logic based. V Breezy wants to know what's the weather here in Portland. It is cold and dry at the moment. I may go out for a cigar with a buddy tonight, and it will probably be in the 30s. I will be huddled next to the fireplace outside. Jan at Rob Schuh. Imagine if they called all those holding calls on Bosa throughout the season. You're killing me. It would be amazing if we got those holding calls. It would be amazing. Amazing. Luckadoo agrees. Shanahan has to try to boost Jimmy G's trade value ahead of the offseason. I would be shocked if he's still on the team starting next season, barring a Super Bowl win. Well, I should say he agrees in the end of that statement. I don't think there's anything about boosting his trade value right now. I think it's all about winning right now, Luckadoo. But I agree that I would be shocked if he's still on the roster next season, barring that Super Bowl win. Maybe a Super Bowl appearance or a strong NFC Championship game appearance would bring him back. But I think that's a lower chance of that occurring and him being back. JC at Rob, no Warner? How do you feel he's been playing? I think that Warner has been solid this year, but he's been missing the big plays that get you noticed. The big plays that got him that big contract. He hasn't had the forced fumbles. He hasn't had the fumble recoveries. He hasn't had the interceptions. He hasn't had the sacks. Now, he hasn't had the opportunities for those plays. D'Amico Ryans indicated that Fred Warner would have greater chances to rush the quarterback this year. It has been significantly fewer chances so far. I'd love it if the defense set up in a way that he could get greater opportunities to rush the quarterback, because I do think he is capable of that. Richard Miller coming in to say hi. Hello, Richard. Luke Luna. Debo won't break top 15. It's too early. I don't know. What he is doing is so special right now. He deserves it. He deserves it. Luke does agree, though, the other three. I agree. Bosa, Trent, and Kittle easily could be. Remember how quickly Kittle climbed in those rankings. I think people see what Debo is doing, and it is very, very special. Red Wing 644. Rob, it looks like the Dolphins took out our pick. How did that happen? I'm not sure what you're referring to, but do you mean that they have our pick? That would be because we have Trey Lance. That would be because we have Trey Lance, and that's a good thing to have. All right, folks, we have gone an hour 20 now, answered all the previously submitted questions, answered all the questions in the chat. We are going to wrap this thing up. Remember, for the mailbag, keep an eye on my Twitter handle if you want to know when I'm going live. The Left Shoe on Twitter, I announce it before I go live. I've got a couple of shows coming up tomorrow, one at 2:30, bringing on a special guest from the Atlanta Falcons side of things, and then at 5 p.m., both times Pacific Standard, 2:30, and 5 p.m. 5 p.m. will be with Randon McMahon breaking down the previous win and looking forward to Atlanta. So we're definitely getting some good insight on the Atlanta Falcons tomorrow, 2:30 and 5 p.m. here on the channel. Thank you, everyone, for joining me for this episode of the 49ers Mailbag. If you enjoy the content, please do hit that like button before you go and subscribe to the channel. If you want to know when I'm going live and you don't want to follow me on Twitter, then go down and hit that little bell notification. That should update you when I go live on YouTube. I will see all you 49er faithful again soon. I'll be on tomorrow at 2:30. Until then, cheers, Niner faithful.